This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Unstoppable. Discover the inspiring true story about Anthony Robles, who defied every expectation to become a national wrestling champion in Unstoppable, a new original movie from Amazon MGM Studios and director William Goldenberg, evoking the excitement and camaraderie of classic sports dramas and thrilling wrestling matches. Unstoppable features an all-star ensemble cast, including Jarrell Jerome, Jennifer Lopez, Don Cheadle, Michael Pena, and Bobby Cannavale. Watch Unstoppable now, exclusively on Amazon Prime Video.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well, at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it.
Welcome back to another edition of the Rams Up post-game reaction here on the Rams Up Podcast Network. Like, subscribe, and share this video and podcast with all your fellow Rams fans and football fans. We three here and everyone else who joins us, very much appreciated. But, Rams Nation, dang it. Rams lose a heartbreaker, 22-28 versus the Philadelphia Eagles in a snowy Pennsylvania storm. Freaking sucks, as the Rams also shared this as well. 22-28 out there in Pennsylvania. And, damn it. But, gentlemen, enough about my sighs and grief. Mark, Paul, how you guys doing today?
Yeah, you know what made this a little extra painful for all of us, I'm sure, is I felt like we were so close to having an incredible ending and bringing it back to SoFi. Especially at the end there, start of the fourth quarter, I thought we had all the momentum. Things went sideways on us. And then at the end, after Puka's catch, and then deflation. And that's what makes it a little more painful. But I don't want to focus too much on the negative. I don't anyways, because I think there's a lot to be really proud about this team and happy with the way they performed this year. So I'll try to celebrate that over the next few days. But yeah, major bummer for sure.
Yeah, it's a good mindset. I definitely need to adopt that the next couple of days.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, true. Paul, how you doing, man? You hanging in there?
Little LA there. Shout out to the Worldwide Ramley, man. They represented in the playoffs. That SoFi home game, they all turned out. Relocated home game, we should say, right? And the Beast Coast Ramley was there. You saw in the pregame, they were out there. I mean, it was a tough loss. It was a tough loss. But the Rams, I think they really showed their character. The Rams really played a great game. It was just Beast Coast weather just made it, man. Just a lot to overcome today. Just all in one game. It's just a lot to overcome.
A lot to overcome for sure, which is why when the tournament started, I was like, can we avoid Philadelphia till the NFC Championship? I just thought objectively it was a bad matchup. When we talked to that, we talked to those ideas in our Keys to Victory episode this past week. But, we said, hey, some of these things need to go our way and we'll have a fighting chance. So as the Rams did have a fighting chance clearly throughout this game. And with that said, let's go into some team stats real quick. And don't worry, Rams Nation, we'll break down, all the big moments. But real quick for you, what did it look like as an overall, eagle eye, Rams eye standpoint? So total yards, the Rams had more, 402 versus Philly's 350. Passing yards wasn't even close. Jalen Hurts, 65. Matthew Stafford, 291 in the snow. Wow. Rushing yards. Well, we'll talk about that shortly. 285 for Philadelphia versus 111 for the Rams. Yards per play, exactly the same, 5.7. Wow, that's really incredible, actually, if you think about it. First downs, the Rams had more, 18 versus Philly, 16. Third down efficiency, 6 for 16 for the Rams, 6 for 15 for the Eagles. Fourth down efficiency, Rams 1 for 2, 1 of 1 for Philadelphia. Total plays, Rams had 70, Philly had 61. Sacks allowed, Rams unfortunately had 5 go against them, but shockingly, I'm sure to many people in the football universe, this young Rams defense, but not just the fearsome foursome 2.0 group of Verse, Braden, Fisk, Turner, and Young. Other guys were getting in and getting home to the quarterback, which equaled 7 sacks against, I think, the best O-line in the entire NFL. Fantastic. Punts, 5 for Rams, 4 for the Eagles. Penalty yardage, 3 for 30 for the Rams, 3 for 14 for the Eagles. And interceptions thrown, 0. Time of possession, 29 minutes for the Rams, 30 minutes, almost 31 for the Eagles. But the biggest one of them all was the fumbles lost. 2 for the Rams, 0 for the Eagles. Absolutely crappy that it went that way. And we'll go into detail of those things very soon. Now, with that, Rams Nation, real quick, some offensive stats for our team, for the Rams. So Matthew Stafford ended up with the 324, as that other number I read for you was incorrect and was not updated, as I just
I think that might have been less sack yardage lost.
You're right.
That's what they do.
They do account for that as well. I think you're correct on that. Thank you, Mark, for tuning in and sharing that. So Matthew Stafford 3 for 324. Kyron had 106. We saw the big runs, scrambles by Matthew Stafford when he's running over Quinyon Mitchell and stuff. Puka almost had 100. DeMarcus had 74. Kupp 61. Higbee 54. Tutu had his 1 for 18. Jordan had 1 for 12. Colby had 2 for 9. And obviously Higbee and Colby, the only pass catchers to score touchdowns, were the tight ends. Very interesting and very, very cool, actually. Finally, get them in the damn end zone. So there's that. Then you have, how about the Eagles as a whole for their offense real quick? So you got Jalen Hurts again, only throwing for 128. Really incredible. Saquon, 205, 2 rushing touchdowns. Gosh dang it. And then Jalen had a 7 for 70, scrambling around. Goddard only had 56 as he was their leading receiver. Saquon Barkley had his checkdowns for 27, a little screen. And then Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, 21 and 14 yards. Excellent. Excellent to contain those freaks and natures on the outside. But again, Saquon 205 makes up for it, unfortunately. And then real quickly, defensive stats for the Rams. We'll be fast about this. All the tackles, but again, let's go through the sacks. Jared Verse said, I'll talk shit and show up. 2 sacks with all the pressures and tackles for loss. Omar Speights had a sack. You had Jalen McCullough have a sack. Kobe Turner had a sack. Braden Fisk had a sack. Neville Gallimore had a sack that was a safety. I mean, fantastic for those guys getting home. And then Eagles defensive stats real quick. All the tackles you see if you're tuning in with us. Jalen Carter, 2 important critical sacks he got on us. Moro Ojomo had 1. Jox Hunt had 1. And that was really a big deal. And then Nolan Smith Jr. had the strip sack. That was brutal as well. So real quick, Rams Nation, that's all that fun stuff. And with all that, anything stand out to you, gentlemen, here with me? I'll start with you, Mark. Is there a certain stat that you're like, holy crap about?
Well, focusing on the positive, you went through those sacks pretty quickly, but I think 5 of those were by rookies, which is pretty interesting and a good sign for the Rams' future. And, I think the analysts really celebrate Saquon Barkley's ability. I'm going to avoid saying his first name. Barkley's ability against the Rams. But look what Matthew Stafford did in this game.
Yeah.
I saw some people banging on him on social media, and I don't understand. I was just
Dumb.
really impressed with that.
I'm
it was
just going
great.
to interject real quick and say, dumb.
Yeah.
Don't do that, Rams Nation. He's the only reason why we had a chance at this game. Don't be dumb. Anyway,
Right.
sorry.
And from a defensive perspective, I don't know what the answer is with containing Barkley. For much of the game, we did a pretty good job, but there's 2 giant runs, just like last time. But hey, if that's our game plan, maybe it almost worked. Let him have his big runs, shut him down a lot in between, and we'll win in the end with the passing game. I'm being somewhat facetious here, but we still had a chance to win this game, and we probably should have, despite all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anything stand out to you with the stats real quick, Paul?
Yeah, I saw the reaction against Stafford. I just want to point out, in a snow game, Optimus 9 threw up 324 yards, 2 TDs, 0 INTs, and a 97.2 quarterback rating in the snow.
And he took a shot to the ribs early in the game.
And he put Q Mitchell out of the game. He ran in like a beast. Yeah. I don't think that was intentional, by the way. But no. So in any case, I mean, listen, if there was any question whether Stafford should be back next year, I mean, that was a race today. I mean, he brought them down to the final seconds. It was there. It's just like we were talking about, there's just a lot to overcome. The Rams had to overcome the 18 points straight from the Eagles ground game. You just can't do that. You can't give up 200 and change and 18 points in the ground game. You just can't, right? That's like the fundamentals of defense. So, but in any case, there were a lot of positives today. Puka showed up. You had 14 receptions by the wide receivers in a snow game. I thought the tight ends could have been involved a little bit more, but that it is what it is. But Higbee played great. He showed that hopefully he'll be even better next year once his knees at full strength. What really hurt the Rams today was the red zone. Too many empty trips or 3 points out of the red zone, 2 for 5, and we said that was going to be the difference in a game like this. If it was 3 for 5, think about it. It's a different outcome. But would, should, could. Subjunctive case doesn't help you in sports. You got to get it done. So the 2 for 5 really blasted them in the red zone. But the 2 turnovers. But Keir Thomas played well. Gallimore, that might go unnoticed, but when you start talking about building from the roster bottom up, I think Keir Thomas, the Rams may have stumbled onto something, man. He's put on a lot of weight. He's played well. Nice rotational player. So I like that part of it. The secondary held up well, so that was another big deal. And it's just a lot of positives to take away from this season. And if it's tough for it to end the way it did. The Eagles are a great team, and the Rams are a great team. It was what we were expecting, a great game that went down to the wire. And at one point, everybody thought the game was over, and Stafford took them right down the field, right? So
yeah,
there's a lot to take away from the positive side. It's going to be a fun off season for the Rams because there's a lot to build on. Jordan Whittington, for example, he's got to get the rock next year. They got to get him involved. Jay Witt's got to get the ball next year. But it's gonna be a fun off season for the Rams.
I think so too. Rams Nation. But as this is a post-game reaction, and unfortunately this is the final game of the 2024 campaign and of this playoff run for the Rams, let's get into in depth of this game and how it actually unfolded. I think quarter by quarter, I think, is a fair starting point. So with that first quarter here, on the very first drive of the game, Jalen Hurts runs for 44 yards and a touchdown. Brutal. And we're like, you got to be freaking kidding me. Then, luckily, Matthew Stafford hits Higbee after a long 15-play drive and throws an absolute laser beam in between 2 Eagles defenders and gets a 4-yard touchdown to Tyler. Then, later, you see Braden Fisk have that big sack, injures his knee, brutal. And then a little bit later, Rams, unfortunately, don't get anything big going on. Jalen Carter gets them on a sack. And then Saquon Barkley explodes for another big touchdown again. And we're thinking, this can't be happening where we're giving up super runs again. So real quick, Mark, your thoughts on that first quarter with the big touchdowns given up, Stafford being clutch, and then Braden Fisk's big sack that ultimately got him hurt and got him out of the game, sadly.
Yeah, on that first drive, the first touchdown drive, Tyler Higbee had a big third down conversion. Kyron converted a 4th and 1 like he usually does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the big runs, it's like deja vu, and it was pretty painful. And but I had this growing feeling, even as those plays and the ensuing ones occurred, that the Rams were in this despite all that. But yeah, I don't know what the answer is scheme wise. I know I think you're trying to get guys up on the line of scrimmage and to stop him. And I think he's very good. Him and his offensive line are very good. They're in sync. And if he makes a cut into space, he's gone. And I would make the argument actually that Kyron's running was actually more impressive in a lot of ways as far as running through traffic, breaking tackles. Yeah. Saquon didn't have to break many tackles on his 2 runs, really. He was just running to open space. So there is some maybe the strategy there and the alignments were not what they needed to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Paul, your thoughts on all the craziness in the first quarter, and then also, Braden Fisk's sack that got him hurt, sadly.
Yeah, Braden Fisk was on the stationary bike early, so he must have heard it earlier in the game as well. I mean, this was an interesting quarter. So Ram Nation, so McVay's strategy was probably spot on. The weather wasn't super bad. It was getting there, and he knew he had maybe an hour before he was going to get bananas. So he was trying to get as many points. So that's why Stafford was opening it up a little bit more than I think anticipated. I think everybody was expecting the Rams to churn it out on the ground a little bit more, but he was trying to gather as many points as humanly possible before the weather went south. So they were moving the ball. The Barkley touchdown was an absolute backbreaker. Absolute backbreaker. And Jalen's too, right? Because it was so early in the quarter, and it was, you could just see it was a gaping hole there on the right side. But from the Rams' perspective, they were able to move the ball down the field through the air. And, in bad weather games, I was telling Mark, the tight ends are like the easiest throw. It's the shortest throw, inside leverage. We saw that with Higbee. And then later on in the game with Parkinson, I thought they would have used that a little bit more.
Me too.
In the second quarter. But, first quarter, it was 2 plays that really swung the momentum and eventually did the Rams in.
Yeah, I was like, gosh dang it, I can't believe it. But I did enjoy Stafford's, great drive. Again, that laser beam throw, I was like, oh, he's on one today. We're going to have a shot. And then I was feeling good about us getting home to Jalen Hurts early. So that felt good. But Braden Fisk getting out, did it cost us? Maybe his big plays would have been crucial, or his presence. But, shout out to the D-line for holding strong the rest of the game. And we'll get to that rest of the game. As we jump to the second quarter, as not much was going on after all the high-flying offense in that first. As we go here, Rams do have another long drive to kick the field goal, as unfortunately CJ Gardner-Johnson had that really big stop on 3rd and 2 when we were in the red zone there, which forced the Cardi field goal, which luckily, no problem. Ethan Evans had a good hold. Ward had a good snap, and Cardi nailed it from 30 yards, and that was good to see. But then from there on out, hey, big run, or I should say sustained run by the Eagles, run, incomplete pass. And then Jared Verse showed up and had a big sack. Then we got the ball back, had to punt, things didn't go well. And then the Eagles ultimately, was thinking, oh, we're going to score some points before the half. But that's when Omar Speights gets in there, strip sacks, and then Kenneth Gainwell falls in it, and they just decide, all right, we're going to give it one more go. And then Jared Verse had another sack before halftime. So not much scoring, Rams Nation, but 3 big sacks by rookies, 2 by Verse, 1 by Omar Speights, kept this thing close, 10-13 going in the half. So I'll start with you, Mark. Your thoughts on Cardi getting the points, and then the rookies totaling 3 sacks in that second quarter to kind of keep it close.
Yeah, I mean, it's just inspiring to watch these rookies play on defense. It's just incredible. And I can't wait for them to show what they have next year. And our special teams, not just Cardi, Ethan Evans had an incredible game as well. think the special teams, I think the announcers are banging on Xavier Smith for not fielding that punt. But under the conditions, I wouldn't go too hard on him. I think the special teams coach should have fielded it. But yeah, Cardi came through, Ethan Evans came through. And I think in that first half, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty darn sure we had a 2nd and 2, a 3rd and 2, and a 3rd and 1, and we were unable to convert in all 3 cases. So that especially hurt.
Yeah, it definitely hurt. And that was a big 3rd down stop they got in the red zone there, Paul. And your thoughts on that? Obviously, led to some points, luckily, and then versus 2 sacks and Omar Spate's big sack there in the second quarter as well.
Yeah, that was a crucial trip to the red zone that wound up for a field goal. I mean, they got the point, but think about the difference. It would have been 14-13, right? So that empty trip, it's not empty, but that, that half a score, I like to call field goal half a score, made a huge difference in the final outcome. In that drive, you saw it. There were a lot of things in the run game they were trying to do. I think they got a little too cute in the run game. There was a couple of where if they could have just went, straight duo or straight power, they probably would have picked it up. But you're trying to do too much in a bad weather game. It's always going to come back to bite you. But like I said, the Rams got their defense going. They got their offense a little bit in sync, and they kept it close. That's what they wanted. McVay going that interview before they went into halftime. You saw McVay's face. He was like, "We're right there." You could see it in his face. It was playing out the way he wanted it. But I know he wanted that touchdown to go in at 14-13. But the Rams were still in it. They were right there.
They definitely were. So then we go into halftime. We're like, well, we're hanging in there, even though we've given up a couple big runs. And then luckily Jake Elliott missed the PAT, which we said in our keys to victory that one of these kickers was going to screw up and miss some kicks. And luckily that was him. And so we go in only down by 3 going to halftime. In the third quarter, a lot of stuff going on as we get the ball first to open up the half. 3 and 5 plays and we're out of there. Unfortunate. Then we 3 and out the Philadelphia Eagles as we have a good stop, and then we have a long sustained drive where Cooper Kupp is catching a bomb on 3rd down. You get Kyron Williams running for 30 yards. You get some short stuff, and then you have the absolutely brutal stretch zone handoff where the ball just literally slipped out of Matthew Stafford's hands in the red zone there as we were on the doorstep on that 1st and goal situation to possibly get it. And we lose tons of yardage on that. And it was just like, I cannot believe it. As I know, a lot of Rams Nation was quick to be like, Kyron, that dumbass. Oh my God, la, la, la. When it was not Kyron, everybody on that one in the red zone. Matthew Stafford trying to hand it off on the stretch run, just completely slipped out of his hands. And, luckily Kyron was able to jump on it, but led to a field goal. Then, Philly drives down, gets a field goal for themselves. We get the ball back and we're like, can't do anything with it. And then short run for Saquon as Ethan Evans had a great punt right before that. And then Gallimore gets a huge safety to end that third quarter pretty much. So a lot of craziness went on Rams Nation in that third quarter. So your thoughts, Mark, on a good drive that got screwed by the fumble on the handoff. Elliott then burning some time, and then Gallimore coming up huge, and the defense for getting a big, safety sack on the Eagles offense. Your thoughts on that?
We were really fortunate that we were able to recover that fumble. Actually, that could have been a disastrous play. And on the safety, I don't know what the Eagles were doing there. Jalen Hurts dropping back like that was really odd, especially with the kind of pressure the Rams have been bringing. And I want to say, sometimes we focus on everything that went against us, and there were a couple plays. I'm pretty sure they're in the third quarter that went our way. One of them would be, okay, it's a bummer that we messed up that handoff, but it was a big break that we recovered it. And then that was the quarter, I'm pretty sure, where A.J. Brown had the drop, like I think it was a 3-yard line. And that was a really big break in our direction. And then they had that little screen pass to Goddard down to, I think, the 2 or the 3 that was called back for the illegal player downfield that messed up that drive. So this is hopefully going to make Ram fans feel a little bit better in that we were the beneficiaries of some things that happened. And so, the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter, after that safety, and we got the ball back after the safety, of course, I was feeling really good about where the Rams were in this game.
Yeah, definitely same. I mean, Paul, your thoughts on the fumble that cost us a touchdown, maybe, and then ultimately a little bit later, Gallimore getting a huge safety on Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, you see that another trip that wound up with a field goal, but the Rams walked away with points, but those field goal trips eventually came back to bite them. But shout out to Jake Elliott. He had trouble with the extra points, but he knocked those field goals through. It was his leg that was the difference today. Saquon was, it was Saquon and Jake Elliott who really made the difference today. And shout out to Jalen Hurts, man. I mean, that knee, I thought he was done for the game, right? He came back, put the brace on, and so that's playoff football, man. Both sides of it. You see the Warriors come out, but for the Rams, Cardi came through, and then the big safety, the field position, playing the field position game in bad weather always pays off. Special teams played really well today for the Rams. It really did. But that was a crucial drive that ended up in a field goal instead of the full 6.
Yeah, yes, it was. And I'm very unfortunate. But, we're feeling good, 15-16 going into the fourth quarter, getting the ball back. And we're like, oh, hell yeah, we're still alive. And I was definitely feeling that way after feeling kind of down on the fumble and other stuff. I was like, gosh, we're just blowing opportunities. So we jump to that fourth quarter. And before we get to the scoring stuff, we get the ball back off the safety as, you get a safety, you also get the ball back. So they kick off to us. Kyron has a nice 8-yard run. And then the next play, he's getting decent yardage. And then Jalen Carter comes in and rips that football out. Isaiah Rodgers scoops and picks it up for 40 yards on that. I could not believe it happened. And I know Rams Nation, it was snowing pretty good. I understand all that, yada, yada, yada. But you can't fumble in the playoffs like that and with a game that close. Absolutely brutal. We'll get more onto that very shortly. So, luckily, Rams defense held on strong, forced another field goal, did not give up a touchdown. Clutch. Absolutely clutch. As what happened, we thought definitely there was a touchdown as Saquon was short. He got brought back. Then they were going to go, brotherly shove, tush push. But luckily, future Hall of Famer Lane Johnson at right tackle for the Eagles, false started. They had to back up and they chose, to kick the field goal. So shout out to the Rams D holding on strong there, making that field goal attempt their only option on that play. Then what happens when we get the ball back a little bit later? Hey, some good yardage. Matthew Stafford hits D-Rob for a big 3rd and 9, some incomplete passes, and then Matthew Stafford gets strip sack fumbled by Nolan Smith, and we're like, I cannot believe it. But we get to another field goal where the Rams defense holds on strong, hangs in there, and we're like, wow, I can't believe it. Rams, unfortunately, have to punt again. They don't do jack. And then Saquon Barkley has a 78-yard touchdown not too long after that, or 2 plays after that, actually. And we're like, oh, this game's over, isn't it? We're like, well, we screwed up. Too many mistakes. The 2 fumbles screwed us. And we're like, well, we'll see if there's a miracle in us, but this game's probably over. And then all of a sudden, Rams go no huddle, and they score under 2 minutes as Matthew Stafford's just destroying them through the air. And then he ends up hitting, Colby Parkinson on the 4-yard touchdown. It was like, what the hell was that all game? And we're like, okay, well, they're alive. Then what happens? We say, do the Rams defense of young core have one more good stop in them? And they did. They get the big stop. And we're like, holy crap. Kobe Turner's big sack led to them kicking it away. And we're like, wow, Matthew Stafford's going to have one more comeback in him, isn't he? As we saw him throw laser beam after laser beam. After Puka's big back shoulder, 37-yard catch where he kind of held it on with his shoulder and helmet. I was like, holy shit, we're going to pull this off. I can't believe it. That, some 3-yard pass. Then we had the penalty where, Kevin Dotson thought the ball was snapped and he false started. Brutal. Then we're hitting Nakua. He gets short of the goal, short of the first down yardage. And then on third down, Jalen Carter totally fake stunts where, real quick, Rams Nation. A stunt is where a lineman, any pass rusher, could be anybody, they attack one way to get to the quarterback at first, and then they go a different direction. It's on purpose. It's not like, oh, I'm just trying to get myself open. It's designed. It's on purpose. He gives a fake shimmy inside, and then he does a swing move over Bo Limmer, our center, and Kevin Dotson totally bit on the shake move as he says, oh, he's shimmying inside, and totally just turns his head away. And then Jalen Carter was just completely untouched, getting that big sack on 3rd and 2 on Stafford. Brutal. And then on 4th down there, many people, including us here, thought that Puka Nacua was held or pass interfered on that 4th down there, as you saw McVay and the whole Rams sideline absolutely pissed that nothing was called there. And that was your ball game, long story short, Rams Nation. A lot of craziness went on in that game there. But your thoughts, Mark, I'll start with you, as all the insanity. 2 fumbles by the Rams offense, 1 by Kyron, 1 on a strip sack on Stafford, Barkley's big run, 2-minute drill to Colby in the end zone on the Rams offense. Rams defense shows up, gets a stop, and then unfortunately Rams just could not have the game-winning touchdown at the end due to some just absolute insanity. Your thoughts?
Yeah, 28-15. I was kind of sunk into my chair.
Yeah.
Thinking about the draft, thinking about what I can do to not think about this game afterwards. What a bummer. And then all of a sudden, we're like, wait a second, something magical might be happening here. And then it got torn away from us again at the end. And, I've went back and looked at that non-call, but, the NFL really needs to fix some of the refereeing stuff that's going on. We all saw what happened with the Texans and the Chiefs, 2 just, horrible calls, again, involving Patrick Mahomes. Surprise, right? Yeah. And then, the refs refusing, basically they're telling cornerbacks and safeties, go ahead and hold in these situations. We're not going to throw a flag. In college football, I think they will. But in the NFL, they put the flags away, and it makes it really difficult for teams like the Rams, who rely on short pass, timing passes, that type of thing, to score in the red zone under those conditions. And we saw it today. But yeah, big bummer. It just would have been. This had the potential to be in one of those generational moments in Rams history. If they pull that off. I'm sorry, I'm just making it hurt more, aren't I?
No, but it's true. I mean, we had a chance to win at the end, and I guess that's all you can ask for, really. But I'll go to you, Paul, here. I mean, this insane 4th quarter. Kyron fumble, Stafford fumble, Saquon run, and then our 2-minute drill touchdown, and then getting the ball back to win it at the end, which I thought we were going to pull off. Your thoughts on all of that in the 4th quarter?
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Go to Blinds.com for 40% off site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, so I'll work backwards. I'll say, for a lot of teams, they would have caved in when it was 28-15. And, Ram Nation, there's a lot to be said about, the defense and then the offense, and special teams coming together and making that last run and making it, like we said, go down to the wire. So from that perspective, that was a real positive, I was like Mark. I was like McVay when I saw that extra point not go through. I was like, oh, here we go. And then you sit up on your sofa a little bit taller. You're like, we got a shot here. But it was great to watch them go down the field, and then the defense come away with a stop, and then Rams take it down again. And remember, Ram Nation, this is when the snow was falling the heaviest. Right. So on top of all that, this is when the snow was falling the heaviest. So, but once again, the Saquon Barkley, that's just a backbreaker. You can't give up that run. Yeah. You just can't. But that's what the playoffs are. The playoffs are, you can't, things that you do all season will always come back to bite you. Right. And that's what the regular season is for. You can't go into the playoffs with like those type of glaring deficiencies, and that's what happened. But shout out to Jake Elliott. 2 clutch field goals were the difference. Wound up being the difference, right? He had it's always funny, right? You struggle with the extra point, but you knock through, and you see the teammates there digging into the ground, trying to clear up some grass for him. I mean, that's playoff football, man. That's what it's all about. Literally scratching and clawing your way to a victory. That's what it's all about. So the least likeliest of heroes come forward. So it was a tough end, but the Rams went down swinging. That's the way you want. They went down swinging, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I think it's important as our whole Rams universe is up in arms for a couple things, and I think it's important to talk about them real quick with you guys and everyone here tuning in. The Kyren fumble. I think we have to talk about it, at least give it some thought here and share our thoughts on that, as a lot of Rams fans were absolutely furious with Kyren Williams for coughing up the football, right after we had gotten the safety and gotten the ball back 2 plays later. So I want to ask you guys here, as we're all together, as many people have shared their thoughts, colleagues of ours in Rams media have shared their thoughts one way or another, and they're very polar opposite, many of us. The fan base is very split, but a lot of them have been leaning, as I've been kind of, viewing everyone's thoughts, leaning very negative on Kyren. I'm going to ask you, Mark, and I'll share my thoughts in a bit after. Does Kyren Williams have a fumbling problem? Yes? Or do you think no?
I think he certainly does. I also think he's one of the best backs in the National Football League. And I was talking to Paul before we recorded here, and I'm going to reserve my thoughts on that. I don't want to be overly negative toward there's 3 or 4 players that we could talk about that cost us just as much, I think. That fumble cost us some momentum. But it's easy for us to say, sitting in our living rooms, in a 25 degree, 30 degree field down there, a slippery ball in the heat of combat, but it is an ongoing problem. So there's definitely an ongoing problem, but I'm not going to throw Kyren Williams under the bus or put the blame of this loss on him. We had, again, I don't want to talk about the negative things that happened with this team on offense, mostly, really, and giving up a couple big runs. What's a bigger problem? Our defense giving up 78-yard runs or a fumble that cost us 3 points, So I'll leave it at that. We'll talk more about it. And I think maybe in a couple episodes, we can talk about, we can grade all our players and hand out some player of the year on each squad and that type of thing. But that's all I'm going to say about Kyren Williams for now. You guys can have at it, but I still love the guy. And maybe we need to get Blake Corum involved next year in critical situations. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe he needs to undergo some off-season ball security therapy to fix it. I don't know.
No, I feel you, and respect to your point of view there. As I had to ask, I knew your answer deep down, even though we haven't talked about it yet. But I'm sure the Rams universe is curious, as everyone is pissed. But Paul, your thoughts on Kyren? And let me ask you: does Kyren have a fumbling issue? Yes, or do you think no?
Well, I think it's a tough call. I mean, I'm also a big Iron Kyren fan. I'll happily go on record for that, right? So, the number of first downs that he slams right into the teeth of the defense, right? If you average that out with the number of fumbles, now that was not a great fumble. It wasn't like there was heavy contact. he was coming through the hole. It looks like he was looking to make a move, and then Jalen Carter just slapped it out of his head like a basketball move. But I think overall, so I mean, look, the development of Aaron Kyren is something that the Rams should be really, really celebrating. He was not a feature back in college. Let's not forget that he was not a feature back in college. The Rams developed him. He's still developing. He's one of the pound for pound, one of the toughest running backs in the league. He does all the dirty work for the Rams. And for the number of plays that he stays on the field, listen, I don't think people realize what a big loss Blake Corum was. And I think McVay is going to get a little payback against Seattle. What Seattle did was absolutely idiotic, and it really hurt the Rams because although it was that one injury with Blake Corum, it was a big one. So just like Captain Lake, who plays the whole game, didn't miss it down all season, you have a back like Kyren Williams. Look at the number of plays he was on the field. Look at the production. And if they start using him in the pass game, do you know how many times he saved Stafford? Stafford would not have made it through the season. The number of blitz pickups that Aaron Kyren just stoned players that are twice his size. So yeah, I mean, it was it was a tough fumble. He's a back that's still developing. He's going to get better. The two things that Aaron Kyren has to get better at. When he gets into the open field, you see him like he's always cutting it back. Like, he's not sure what to do. Go to the outside, man. He's got to get some big runs. I think that's where people get frustrated with him. And they're right. Like that instinct to get to the open field like Saquon does. He gets to the open field, he goes right to the outside, right? He knows there are fewer players there. There's more open space. So that's something that he has to develop. But the positives vastly outweigh the negatives for Aaron Kyren. Tough fumble, absolutely. But the number of things he did on the field today that were positive vastly outweigh the negative. So, yeah, I'll ride with Aaron Kyren.
Yeah, and real quick, Rams Nation, my thoughts on it. For all the things you just laid out there, Paul, great pass blocking. Think about how automatic he was on 4th and short majority of the season. All the heads-up backyard football touchdown plays he had, leaping over dudes, somersaulting over guys. The big one he had in the wild card game against the Vikings where he was not designed to go out there and leak it. He was just like, oh, no one's there? Hey, Stafford, throw me the ball. I mean, those are high-level IQ plays, all the tough running. And with that said, he absolutely has a freaking fumbling problem, and it is a problem. I don't know what it is with lead feature backs since Todd Gurley. All of them fumble all the time. I don't know what they're practicing in Kowloon, now Woodland Hills and elsewhere, where the running backs fumble. Think about it. Everyone was so over Cam Akers because he was fumbling all the time when he was the main guy. Everyone said, get him the hell out of here. And eventually the Rams said, yeah, you can stay home. We're sending you out of here. Think about the times where Darrell Henderson had some bad moments and he was coughing up the football when he was a lead guy. Obviously it wasn't as much, but he had some issues for a while. Think about when Malcolm Brown had some moments where he coughed it up. Obviously, he didn't get a lot of carries, but he had some moments where he dropped it on the ground. And then here we are now where Kyron's the main guy, and he's coughing it up a ton as well. I'm not saying a fumble's never going to happen, but it feels like feature running backs for the Rams under McVay, other than Todd Gurley, they fumble way too damn much, and it's freaking ridiculous. Whatever they're doing with ball security and whatever the focus is, it's not enough when you're a lead running back for the Los Angeles Rams since 2018. Let's just call it what it is. It's unacceptable for any of these running backs to be fumbling this much since 2019, since Gurley's final year with us. It's ridiculous. And I know all people are like, trade him away, get this bum out of our Rams. Stupid. Just stop that dumb shit that if you're saying that, don't be a dummy. Be a smart Rams fan. Realize what Kyren has done for this team for majority of the season. But no question about it, he has a fumbling problem, and it was a bigger reason why we lost this game. Let's not kid ourselves. But to say, get him out of here, all that, don't be dumb, Rams fans.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for.
Don't be dumb.
And that is a progression of running back skill development. So you take a back like Marshall Faulk, who like virtually, when you look at the calculations of fumble per carries, is just like, it was unbelievable. Like he never fumbled, right? But that was something he worked at and he developed. So, Aaron Kyren, for the number of touches he's getting, this is part of the skill development. He's going to have to develop an awareness. A lot of it is probably just awareness. But I will say this today. We went 2 for 5 in the red zone. Had we given the rock to Aaron Kyren, we would not have gone 2 for 5. Because he's cash money in the red zone. He has been all year. He cashes in the number of touchdowns that he turns in for the Rams in the ground game. So yeah, but that's part of the skill development. He has to understand an awareness of that. A lot of you look at a lot of his fumbles, it's when he's going down. It's not like in heavy contact, which is the odd thing. There are some running backs that when they're going down, they relax, right? Or when you're fighting for extra yards, there has to come to a point where you have to give in. You have to it's sort of hard for running backs. So they always want to churn out. But when you feel yourself going down, you literally have to lock up. And for a lot of running backs, there was a running back for the Rams. His name was Cleveland Gary. A lot of Ram Nation will remember that. He had a really bad fumbling problem. And his issue was whenever he was going down, he would relax and that's when people would strip it out. So, I mean, there are a lot of every running back is different. But, we always say 3 points of contact every time with the ball when you have it in one hand. It could be something as simple as, something as that, or, just more aware. I think it's more awareness, right? More awareness more so than anything else. Because when the fumbles happen for him, they're just sort of out of the blue. It's not like he's in heavy contact most of the time. Yeah. That's just my observation.
Well, do we know, and maybe we'll have to round this up by the next time we sync up, what is the data on that? And we see his fumbles and they impact us. But I was just trying to do a cursory look at fumble statistics, and, he's not alone as far as guys that he's probably at the top, but there's a bunch of guys that aren't far behind him that are nothing close to being the running back he is. And and I always think about I don't know if you guys remember this. I don't know if social media was as impactful back then, but there are a lot of people hating on Cooper Kupp when he dropped a touchdown I think it was his rookie year.
I was at that game too. That was brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's that.
Yeah. I mean, and look at Rams Nation. Let's not be fools. Again, I agree it's a problem and it needs to get fixed, and it costs us games, and it's a big reason why we lost today. Duh. But like Mark said, be careful what you wish for, as he was one of the constant show up and score touchdowns and get tough yardage the entire season when this offense sucked a majority of the year. Let's just remember that. And I'm in no opposition standpoint to say don't draft another running back. Absolutely not. If there's someone who's a home run hitter and who can be a Saquon-esque guy, he's a Hall of Fame level talent. Let's not be dumb here about it. But if there's somebody who has that breakaway speed that would be a good complement to his power running, I think that's a fantastic choice. As we know, yes, those times where, Kyren can break out, would a Saquon turn that into a 70-yard touchdown? Sure. So I'm not opposed to getting another running back who could be the lightning to Kyren's thunder of his play style. I'm not opposed to that at all. So, but don't be a dumb Rams fan and say, get him out of here. Don't be that guy or girl or whatever.
Yeah. And as far as the draft goes, I can almost guarantee you the Rams will draft a running back. It's a matter of when. They virtually draft a running back every year. I don't know if it'll be early, but they will draft a running back. Right, Paul?
So this is a great running back class this year. And from round one all the way down. Remember, they spent a third round on Blake Corum. Don't forget that. They spent third round pick on this guy. This for a reason. They must have seen something in him. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they brought in like a big sledgehammer back. I think that would be really, really great in this offense. But we'll see. This is going to be a transition year not to jump too far ahead, but this is going to be a transitional year for the Rams. Yeah. We see that with Cooper Kupp. We see the emergence of a little bit more 12. Who knows? You got a strong tight end room. They have a bunch of decisions to make in terms of free agency for their wide receiver room. So it's going to be really, really interesting. So, and I loved McVay's press conference today. I have not seen angry McVay in a long time. If there's one silver lining to this, I mean, I'm still feeling the loss, and I'm sure the players are. Of course they are, right? But McVay, you saw it in his face. I haven't seen angry McVay, and angry McVay is a dangerous McVay. So I'm hoping that this leads to, a little introspection within the organization. And I will go on record as saying this: they need to look at, is it, with what happened with Cooper Kupp, now you have Puka, and if they're penciling him in for the slot, for next year, look at the wear and tear in terms of what it did to Cooper Kupp, right? And now that puts into context that Super Bowl year that Cooper Kupp threw up all those numbers, sprinkling this, he was probably one of the best blocking wide receivers in the league, on top of all those numbers that he threw up, Triple Crown winner. So take a look at that before you do that to Puka also. Don't do it to Puka, right? Take a look at how you're going to facilitate that, because don't repeat that same thing, because the decline of King Kupp was largely predicated on, the physical wear and tear.
And how many times have we already seen Puka kind of not limp off the field, but not look 100% as he goes to the sideline?
Tons of times. And I think it's, obviously this is a bigger conversation for another day, but I think we're here. Let's just chat about it very shortly. I'm sure a lot of people are curious after this loss is, who's going to be back? And I get it. That could be a whole day's worth of topic and media and everything. But while we're all thinking about it, and as Sean won't comment on Stafford's future or any player's future, Stafford says he's going to take time to think, but he did say at the end, like, I still got a lot of good football left. He's been kind of saying the entire year, let's just be real. He wants to play more. Do the Rams want him? That's another question that I hope they realize after today. Resign the fucking guy. For God's sakes, Rams, please do it. Excuse my language. But real quick, I put out this tweet earlier. I'm like, it's fair to ask if that was the last time we'll see these specific players suit up for the Rams ever again. Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, Colby Parkinson, Hunter Long, Alaric Jackson, Jonah Jackson, Havenstein, Michael Hoyt, Akello Witherspoon, Christian Roseboom. As Stafford, real quick, they restructured his deal to a one-year deal that ends today. As yes, there was future years and there is those void years, but he has no guarantees. And it was done that purposely to say, okay, if we'll see how the season goes and we'll talk about it in the offseason. As everyone remembers that McVay and others were late to a training camp press conference, as McVay was totally stressed. We talked about it when it happened, where he had that look of like, oh my God, we had some tough, real conversations. And, McVay has no poker face about anything, which I do appreciate as a fan. We never, he's obviously he does things, with the game in mind of like, hey, I have to lie to protect, our game plan or whatever. But there's other times where something's up. And that was one of those days where he just looked like he had a shit conversation with, Tony, Kevin, Stafford, and the crew about money and contracts. Hopefully they want Stafford back. He seems like he wants to play. Dude threw for 300-something yards in a snow game, and he was the reason why we were alive. Re-sign the damn man, please. Cooper Kupp, there's outs in his contract after the season, which ended today, Rams Nation. He has not looked the same after that Bills game. He's either playing hurt or father time got him. I don't know which one it is. We've talked about it a ton, but you cannot have a wide receiver in top 10 money and salary cap wise if the production's not going to be matching that. And for him, year after year, be hurt, not be 100%, or if this time around it is just father time, it's unacceptable. Something has to give there. Either they move on from him, which I hope doesn't happen, but if it's for money, you can't blame them. Rams are savages. They do not care what you've done for this team. They'll bail on anybody. So hopefully he comes back at a number that makes sense for the Rams and for his production and everything else. Demarcus Robinson, a free agent after today. Tutu Atwell, a free agent after today. Higbee still has more years, but he has outs in his contract the Rams could, push the button on. He's been hurt a ton and hasn't been 100%. Do they say, hey, you don't think you're worth it? We're out on you. I hope that's not the case. He's a baller. Colby Parkinson, hey, we signed you to big money. It didn't work out. You're obviously not a starting tight end. I could see them yanking the plug on him immediately, like they did to Robinson from a couple years ago. Oh, I'm blanking on his name right now, who he signed. After the 2022 campaign, broke his foot in the Saints game. You're like, you know what? You don't work out for us. See you later. Same thing with Jonah Jackson. Signed him to big money. And we're like, you know what? You can never practice because you were hurt all the time. The one time you did play, you were bad. And then, a 6th-round rookie was better than you. I could see them pulling the plug on him and sending him off. Alaric Jackson, it was a restricted free agent and played like a top 10 left tackle in many, many games this year. Is he going to demand an insane contract? And then do we have to move on and be like, oh, who's going to be our left tackle? That's going to be a question. Rob Havenstein, he's got a couple years left, but is he just overplaying every year and prepping as, some guys hit a wall? We all thought Aaron Donald had a gazillion years left, but he was just done playing. Is Rob Havenstein going to be in that camp as an older veteran player who's late into his 30s? And is he like, you know what, I'm done playing. I won a championship. It was a good ride and I'm over it. Does that happen too? Michael Hoyt's a free agent who has been very, very key in this defense. Akello Witherspoon's a free agent again after having a fantastic run as a starter the second half, late, third half of the season. And then Christian Roseboom, who had, didn't start out great, but played very fantastic from the second half of the season. Even today, he played really well, in my opinion. What happens with him? So I say all that to say, gentlemen here with me in Rams Nation, I expect at least half of these guys to not be back at the Rams. And gosh, that would suck. But that's the reality of football. Not for long. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and there's 2 other guys, Bobby Brown and Joseph Noteboom. Mm-hmm. And, just for everyone's awareness, Paul and I already did a breakdown on the Rams tight end situation and tight ends in the draft, really strong tight end draft, by the way. And we are all primed to do the same with the wide receiver group, identify who's under contract, who isn't, and who the wide receivers in the draft are. Say, yeah, you're right, man. The Rams have a lot of decisions to make, and the wide receiver group will be one of them for sure.
Yeah, I expect everything on offense to be drastically different next year. Hopefully Stafford will be a pillar that's left, but we'll see with everything else, though, right, Paul? I mean, so this is all key players on this list. And I forgot other people, but this is everyone I just thought off the top of my head earlier. Eesh.
Yeah, after watching that press conference, I think, McVay's going to go to work. He's been given a couple of days, but he's going to go to work. He knows how, if you listen to what he was saying. So the Rams beat the Vikings. I know everybody's just like going to town on the Vikings, but they were a 14-win team, right? So the Rams went in there with a horrific start to the season, overcame so much adversity, beat a 14-win team, and then went on the road in the snow and went down to the wire with the Eagles, right? So where people can argue is definitely, right, in the NFC anyway, top 2 team, right? Without question. They've proven it, right? Because that's where they're going. So if you look at it from that context, how close were they? With a season that was marred by injury, they did not play well from third down efficiency standpoint, red zone for a lot of different reasons, overcoming, the drop off with King Cup and everything else. So there's a lot, there's a lot to process there. But if you take a look at it, I think from McVay's perspective, his press conference is spot on. We're so close, right? You got to take that and carry that momentum into the upcoming season. So no rest for the weary, right? But when we do our segment on the Rams offseason, this is going to be an interesting offseason. The Rams consistently are able to bring in 4 to 5 players through the draft every year that can be immediate contributors, right? So that's good from a rotational basis, whatever it may be. Even with their red shirt philosophy, they still are able to do that in certain key components. I think with free agency, they tend to do okay. I mean, they've had a couple of misses. We know that. I think that was more out of desperation than anything else. But I think what's going to happen is I think philosophically you're going to see some tweaks. I think McVay realizes that he has to not make wholesale changes, but he has to tweak the offensive philosophy and definitely has to tweak the defensive philosophy, right? But you can't keep losing so much coaching staff every year. So the same way you bring in free agent players to build your roster, you have to go and bring in, I always say, The best coordinators are ex-head coaches. They get fired every year, bring them on. They are the best coordinators because they are motivated to get what? A head coaching job. And they will do a lights-out job. So a great example of that would be when the Patriots were winning all those bowls. How many times, guys, did Josh McDaniels leave and wind up, when he was available, what did they do? They brought him right back, right? And he did a great job with that offense, right? So that's a great example of that. So you can't keep, and I think McVay is taking so much on his shoulders, right? And that just shows you what a great coach he is, that he still gets that type of output. But it's time to, and I always go back to when he had Raheem Morris, when he had Coach Phillips with that defense, the way he can just say, listen, you got this part, I got this part, let's rock and roll. And that's how they wound up in the big dance every time, right? So those 2 years. So I think that's something he's going to have to take a look at. You got to bring in some heavy-duty guys that can really, that can take ownership of a segment of the team and give you the type of production that that the team deserves. Look at this roster, man. Quentin Lake, out of nowhere, the guy played every Ram Nation. He played every down on that defense. Let's just put that into context. Run defense, deep middle, and probably one of the best slot coverage guys in the league. You got that kind of guy on your defense. You got a vicious pass rush that is deep, right? You got some young players there you can develop. You got to get a lot more out of the various segments of this team, and offensively too. So I think that's another thing that he has to look at. Bring in some name guys that are proven in this league that other teams will have to game plan for instead of the other way around, right? It was too much this year where the Rams were reacting to what the other teams were doing, right? Sometimes you need look at Vic Fangio, right? I'm sure how much time was spent trying to game plan for his defense as opposed to the other way around, correct? That's a game changer. That's a game changer. That's the difference of what a coaching, somebody with that type of notoriety and that skill set can do. So, I mean, the Rams are close. This is going to be a fun offseason. The Rams are going to go into next season with a ton of momentum, a ton of players on the upswing, and a lot of players that are, ascending to a very, very high level. So the Rams are going to they got to bring back Stafford. No question about it. You have to bring back Stafford. You are not going to find another player that can step in at that level and with that level of execution in crunch time. That is why I cannot believe why people are just not seeing that. Stafford delivers in crunch time. Okay? Look at this playoff run by some other teams that will remain nameless, right? That are in Cancun or on their way to Cancun. Look at the quarterback play. So you have to bring back Stafford, even if it's just for one more year, because he will give you a legitimate shot. And if you put the horses around him, dude, it's lights out.
Yeah, it's that simple for sure. I agree. What about you, Mark?
I was just going to say the other guy on this list, aside from Stafford, that I would be putting high priority on is Lyric Jackson, because if he moves on and he could get a big payday somewhere, where do you get your next left tackle? And that's such an important position. I'd love to bring the guy back. I don't know if we bring him back, if it gives us the flexibility of drafting whatever we want in the first round. If we don't bring him back, we got to go find another one or draft one. So, yeah, got to bring Jackson back.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Rams Nation, it's a subject you're like, don't talk about this shit right now. But it's important. Enjoy what you saw this season with this group of guys playing good football for us, because NFL, not for long. Every year is a new year, new faces, a new group that has to grow together. Veterans, rookies, young players, all mix and match, and new coaches, as that's inevitable for a McVay-led Rams team. So enjoy the group whose, futures are up in the air. Everyone on this list in front of you, anyone else we have not named or are not on this list, enjoy it. It was a good year. A lot of guys stepped up and played good football, but we shall see who is back and who is not. I'm sure you have your favorites. We named ours. And again, reminisce, enjoy what you saw, enjoy what we had, and hopefully we will have a lot more to enjoy with this Rams team, led by McVay, led by Stafford and others very, very soon. But yeah, losing sucks. But with that said, any final thoughts, Mark, before we get out of here?
No, we got to start talking about what we want to cover in the coming weeks. We'll talk offline, but for listeners and viewers, we'll be back later this week with something. And Paul and I will be getting into the draft, a lot of mock drafts, and we'll be going position group by position group over the next few weeks. Wide receivers are up next, as I already mentioned. And hey, start looking forward.
Yeah, that's right. Paul, before we get out of here, any thoughts?
Love to the Worldwide Rambling. It is a great season, and next year will be even better.
Yep, that's simple. And for me, Rams Nation, just a thank you for everyone tuning in over this our young journey on this podcast network and channel. We very much appreciate all the growth and all the positive words you've shared to all of us here. And it was a fun ride through all the post-game reactions, the roundtables, the breaking news, the film breakdowns, the draft analysis. It's been very, very enjoyable, and I'm glad many of you have enjoyed it as well. So thank you very much for this whole fun 2024 campaign. But it will not end. We have much more, as Mark said, coming up very soon. Do not worry. There'll be a film breakdown of this divisional round game dropping very soon as well. And don't sleep on these Rams, baby. I'm sure we'll be back very, very soon. And as long as you got the faith, your horns are up, I think this team will continue to be a well-respected, winning franchise that you can always get behind. And we'll cover all of it here on the Rams Up Podcast Network, but that'll do it here. I'm Ian. That's Mark. That's Paul. Thanks for tuning in on our post-game reaction here from the divisional round playoffs against the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, subscribe, share this video and podcast with all your fellow Rams and football fans. We very much appreciate it. But with that said, we'll see you very soon. And never forget, baby, go Rams.
Rambling forever.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.